Hello everyone. In this lesson, let's focus on uploading our web app's source maps to the hub so we can see a clear stack trace here linked to our TypeScript files. What's the mechanism here? We need to generate source maps when building our web application. So, what are source maps? They help us understand how our built JavaScript file corresponds to certain lines in our TypeScript file. Therefore, when an error stack trace appears, it refers to JavaScript, but we know how it relates to TypeScript and can see the exact spots in TypeScript where the error occurred. So we create source maps. Then we need to upload these source maps to the hub. But it may happen that we uploaded the source maps, and then our application changed somehow, so we rebuilt and re-uploaded. But in old errors, the stack traces might be one way, and in new ones, they might be different. And to avoid any confusion here, each build needs to be tagged with a version. Let's call it source version, and we will embed this information. And our application must also report at runtime which source version it corresponds to. Now we will apply all this, and it should become clear. Let's get to it. To send us source maps, we need a Sentry auth token. It's not DSN. It's a different authorization thing, and it needs to be created. The link to this page is in the description, but anyway, it's settings auth tokens. We create a new token, call it oops. Yes, just all my tokens. We won't need others here. Done. It already has the correct scope. Everything here is source map upload and release creation. That's what we need. So, my token, copy it. And let's create n in the variable. So, good. N in the file in the web app. And we need the following NV here. Do you know? So, which ones do we need? One moment. Look, we have this auth token. It's secret. In the end, we shouldn't include it in our final bundle so that people outside don't have access to it. But we need the source version here. So, in our NFTs, we only add the source version that we need. The main thing is that it's in production. It's not mandatory for us locally. Okay, we've added the source version here. All right, and let's go add to NV and NV example the corresponding entries. So let's start with source version. The source version will be generated automatically during the build when we handle the deployment, and GitHub Actions will handle it for us. In source versions, we'll simply store the current commit ID in the future. But for now, we need to set this source version manually for testing. So you can specify any arbitrary string here. Let it be like this. In practice, having a unique source version for each build is crucial. Commit IDs are perfect for this purpose. All right, here's the source version. Now, we also need to add an AUS token. In the center, an AUS token. Let's have it as this. Here it is, just a secret. In principle, this source version is also not mandatory. And here we will mark it as a secret. But in our real end file and in the example, we will substitute a value there. So the source version is 123, Sentry AOS token, the one we copied. Here it is. Good, added it. And now we need to somehow send it to white during the build. So let's go whiteconfig.ts. Well, first, as we added it both in the end file and in NT's our source version, we need to allow whiteconfig to find it. Therefore, we just add source version here, and it will be included in our bundle. Good. And now we need to add a plugin called Sentry White plugin. White has a specially created plugin so that it pushes something to Sentry during the build. Let's install this dependency. It's a dev dependency because it's only needed during the build. So let's install it. Install it in the web app. Good. And let's start using it gradually. So we import this plugin into white tees. And then we still need to do, let's pass it now. If Sentry Aus token is specified, then we need to send to Sourcemap. The code will be like this. Why are there Sentry files here in the end files? Because all possible end files have ended up here. In public end files, only these sorted ones are present. Okay, the rule here is if the Sentry Aus token is missing, we do nothing. And if it's present, we add this plugin. What is important to mention here? Our organization. Idea Nick. It needs to be checked in Sentry. Project name? That's the Aus token itself. And also pass our source version here. And it defines called release. The only thing we added now is that things like source version and house token are not mandatory during local development, but they are mandatory in production. And we need to also add this validation in veto, so it warns us if we forgot to pass these envs. That is, if our host env is not local, then we check for Sentry, house token, and source version. We don't add this validation to our env DAIs because it handles validation, so to speak, at runtime, while this one validates envs during the build, because build and runtime are two different processes. All right. Technically, we could create a special separate env.ts file for the build, but it might be excessive. We don't have that many checks here. We can just leave them in this format. All right. So we've done this, and we need to adjust something in our Sentry settings in runtime. Let's go to Sentry, and here we simply need to specify our release because we uploaded our source maps with this release specified. And at runtime, we need to indicate that our program also runs under this release, so it can correctly show the source maps from the intended release for this application. All right? Because you might have a situation where you have a production server and a dev server, and there are different releases with different errors. Accordingly, they have different source maps, etc., and no confusion will arise. Good. Now let's introduce some error into our system. Let's try to build and look at the stack trace. Okay, let's go, for example, to edit profile. We are currently authorized here. Yes, good. And we add an error, well, let's say, in our form. Right here. Simple. We'll throw new error. My error. All right. And now, let's stop our web app and build it. So, we check the logs. Information should now appear about us pushing something to the center. So, we get an error. Well, we specified the organization incorrectly. Let's go to the center and see where to find our organization's name. Okay, settings, general. Settings, here's the organization slug. Well, I was given this one. You can change it to another one. Well, let's say I won't change anything and use this one. All right, then here we go and replace the organization in our vite.config.ts with the necessary one. Technically, this organization could also be added to the env files. Well, here it's up to you. I mean, for your project, it should always be exactly like this, especially since you are not making an open source project. Thus, it's at your discretion. The name of your organization in the center isn't very confidential data, but this part is, well, it's definitely confidential and it just changes dynamically. Okay, let's build it again. Great. Created the source map and pushed it. Let's check it out. Let's launch our preview. Pen in preview. And let's try to trigger this error. Okay. Update, profile, my error. Let's look at our issues. So, and we wait until the error arrives. It doesn't arrive immediately. My error. And we don't have source maps here, so something is wrong. Let's still look at the errors that Vite gave us here and deal with them. Usually, such problems with integrations are not solved quickly. Probably need to configure additional settings for paths. Let's figure it out now and continue. Okay, I see. A small mistake. We forgot to build the source map. For this, you need to specify the build settings. We need the source map. Let's try this way. It should work. Building again. Now let's change our error so we don't confuse it with the previous one. All right, let's go to index.tsx and throw my new error to building. Okay, good. And let's run the preview. The preview simply shows your application from the dist folder. Now we can go to associations, and we see that a .map file has appeared. Previously, I didn't have it here, and that was the issue. So now, everything should be fine. Let's trigger our error, my error 2, go to issues and wait for this error to appear. Now, my error 2 has appeared. Here we can see our TypeScript file with its exact location. You can even see that everything started somewhere in the form on some lines. It's all clear. Congratulations to everyone. We uploaded the source map, and now we can navigate all these errors very well. We can move on. See you soon.